I'm Edward Warfield. I'm the publisher of Citybiz, and I'm honored today to interview Brian Friedman, the founder of Friedman Capital. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. This is very exciting.
Can you provide an introduction to Friedman Capital?
Friedman Capital is a family office that I founded so my family and I could invest with some of the best investors and invest in various real estate projects, as well as private equity, as well as venture capital. And it allowed various family members of us to have core competencies and be able to exploit our core competencies and all invest together. And since I was the first of the generation and I had the liquidity, I founded Friedman Capital with the thinking that my cousins and my brothers and my sister would all have a place to invest together and share together and not to be in competition together. And most importantly, we're a very philanthropic family. So this gave us a way to be philanthropic in a different way, where when we made our investments, we believe in something called tzedakah. So we give a percentage of our revenue, our profits, away in donations. And by commingling our assets, it allowed us to stay philanthropic when any one asset might not be performing. So for me, my real estate's pretty consistent, but there are times where it's not. And by commingling with other investments in private equity and stocks and bonds and venture capital, hopefully something else is having a spike at that time that allows us to commingle so we can make our obligations as a family that tries to make donations. And so, yes, we're trying to make money, but we're trying to make money in a way so we can give as much away as possible. And when we make these commitments, we wanted to do it in something that was very sustainable. And so by commingling our funds and commingling our investments, it allows us that ability. It allows us that stability to do those things. And so that was really the whole point of it. I didn't want to have competition amongst my family members either. If my real estate was doing really well and their venture capital was doing really bad, or usually what happens is the venture capital has these great returns and I could have been envious that I wasn't allowed to be in those investments. So this gave us a platform for us all to share, and more importantly, it gave us a platform to be philanthropic and share with the rest of humanity. And that's what we're built on. We're built on karma people. So we want to do to others as we want done to ourselves.
Can you provide some milestones over the last decade?
It really started in 2008. I was just early. I went on my own. Friedman Capital was a thing in 2008, but we were investors investing in other people's deals. We thought that there was all this distress coming, and the distress really didn't start until 2009, 2010. So our founding in 2010 was because that's when we had multiple investments going on at the same time. Before that, I left in 2008. I set us up. I was out there looking for stuff, but we're special situation investors. We like to see things that other people don't see, and that's why we invest. We're always investing with a margin of safety, and we're relationship based. So usually a relationship has brought us into that situation. So it makes perfect sense that I was early spring of 2008 seeing the world was going to end, and I had to go out on my own to find this distress and create Friedman Capital. But once I had those relationships, we're very cautious people. It just took longer than I thought. So our real investments didn't really start going until late 2009, early 2010. And one of the main projects that I got going then was called the Line Hotel, which back then was a church. It was a conversion of a church in Northwest DC in a submarket called Adams Morgan. And the church was 100 years old, and I had optioned the parking lot behind the church and optioned the building behind that, which was then the city paper building. My family was in newspapers or had invested in newspapers. So I used that as a way to be able to buy the building because the newspaper didn't want to sell the building because that's where they made newspapers. So I had to attempt and really try to buy the newspaper to get to their real estate. And all those type of transactions and that coming together, that all happened in 2010. There was also there was a lot of distress in the real estate market. So we made some other real estate investments. And by 2011, 12, my father had retired from the company that he had founded, Harvard Drug, because they had sold themselves to Cardinal Health. And that gave him an opportunity to come into my company, to come into Friedman Capital, and not my company, it can really be our company, as it was always planned to be. And that allowed him to focus on his space, which is distribution companies. So we're investors in distribution companies, and we're invested in a drug distribution company called KeySource, and he leads that investment, and he's the chairman of that investment. And that all really came together when I had children, and I had my first son February 1st, 2011. So the pictures of us putting it together all started around then as my dad retired from Harvard Drug. I had enough investments that I had basically made in 2010 that I could put through the company. And that gave us a back office to support those investments and to support our initiatives. As you know, we've gone out and made a bunch of investments since then. And we invest like we're operators. We invest to be owners, and we invest for the long term, and we're investing to make an impact, and we're investing to make an exceptional return on our investment. Otherwise, we don't want to invest. And we only invest in things that we put our time and our energy and our soul behind. Otherwise, we just give money to Goldman Sachs and our stockbrokers and let them do their thing and get out of the way. But what we invest in are things that we believe in, that we think we are the smartest guys in the room, that we are the subject matter experts. And if we're not the subject matter expert in the field, but we want to make the investment, we must bring in a subject matter expert and make them our operating partner. Make them someone that we can really trust, and they need to be invested as well, invested in what we're doing. So if you had to, this is a long answer, but I guess the Line Hotel in Adams Morgan, which ultimately is like a $180 million development project that's 220 rooms, would be what it starts with. And I'm most proud of it because I have a nonprofit called the Adams Morgan Youth Leadership Academy. And the idea of that academy is that it was going to take youth that were selling drugs, that were ripping off my car or throwing bricks at me, giving them hope by giving them jobs. And the idea is once they had a job, it wouldn't just be job placement, it'd be job growth. So if they came in at the hotel as a busboy at 14 years old, when they were 16 years old, they were in valet. And when they were 18 years old, they were moving to some sort of managerial role. And we were pushing them to get into college, and we were pushing them to be an accountant or a finance major so they could go get a great job, or they could come work in our accounting department, in our finance department in the hotel. So it was a really holistic, integrated approach that 51% of the people that work in this 500-person hotel live in that area, that ward, and 51% of that are youth and are coming out of the Adams Morgan Youth Leadership Academy. So it made it so that a lot of minorities, a lot of youths had job opportunities, and then they had somebody watching them and helping them so they had job growth, which was really important.
So what are the projects that you're working on this year?
Well, we have a SPAC, which has become like kind of a bad word, but we are really enjoying the process of SPAC because we're owners, operators, and we like to get our hands dirty. And it's what we do anyways. We are investors. We buy companies. We don't buy companies to buy them. We buy companies to invest in them, to own them, to help them grow. And so this has given me the opportunity to go after unicorns, to go after billion-dollar companies that I think are going to be $20 billion companies quickly. So it's amazing to me what a great country we live in and how many opportunities that I've been able to look at. How many billion-dollar companies there are that really have tremendous growth and are going to be that much bigger. So the SPAC is one of them. And then the other is hospitality. Because what COVID did is COVID exposed my portfolio. And in COVID, there was hotels that basically were doing pretty well. I mean, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't the best years they were ever having in 2019, but they were doing fine. And they went to zero. They just stopped. And the businesses were closed for a period of time. In some instances, it was 3 months. In other instances, it was as long as 9 months before they were reopened. So it gave me the ability to have to close down my properties, then reopen them from a hard zero stop and to make them into something. And so it exposed the weaknesses and gaps that we're having. And it also proves out what we are. We really kind of are distressed investors because we kind of want to buy low and sell high. So we've been buying hotels right now throughout COVID because COVID has forced these businesses to do what they've done. And it's also shown me the other real estate and the other investments we have, what is recession proof and why they are such good investments. Our offices performed, our industrials performed on the real estate side. And then on the private equity side, things have gotten better. So I feel really good about how we've built our portfolio and how we've done those things. But the hotels really has been the most exciting for me, is taking the most time and attention because you're going from zero to where you are now. And Delta is real. And I've watched Delta really hit my numbers the last couple of weeks. And I'm watching us come out of Delta. And I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm feeling about as good as I was feeling in June when I was eating in New York City without a mask on. And I'm starting to think to myself, we might be able to get there. It might be different this time. And my fingers are crossed and I'm an optimist. But I believe that being stuck up in my home has made people want to travel like they've never wanted to travel before, or at least me personally. It's made people appreciate the experiences that they had, and they want to go have that experiences with their kids. So I call it a jailbreak. And I think people are going to want to travel like they've never traveled before. So as an investor, I want to look for these supply and demand imbalances, and I know what I'm experiencing. And this is a jailbreak. We want out now. And we had a window. But I'm a little OCD, I'm a little crazy, but I see it in my numbers, so I pulled that. But I'm telling you, a lot of people pulled that. And I'm telling you, it feels like we're coming out of that. And that's really exciting for me. And I equate it to my friends in LA who are movie producers and stuff. And they're telling me this is the golden age of movies. I got Netflix and I got Amazon. I got all these other buyers. And I can't show you that in the numbers yet. But I'm a predictor and a half. And if I wasn't a predictor, I'd be a poor gambler. And I built my wealth on making bets and winning with my bets. And I'm betting that travel is going to come back big time. And that people are going to want to get out. And it's really starting because the international travel is now getting allowed to get back in. And it's really starting because international travel Americans are going out of town again for international travel. Just this week, for an investment that I'm in, I was asked to go to London. Not only was I asked to go to London, it was almost like I was expected to go to London. And I sent somebody from my team in London, and what they told me was the plane was sold out, and it was filled with investment bankers going there and coming back. That's a sign. It reminds me when I go to conferences, and I ask, how many people are going to this conference this year versus last year? And as if the conference is growing, it shows me that the economy is getting better. Or how far are we off the peak? Well, I can tell you in 2019, it was the biggest shopping center conference. In 2019, it was the biggest hotel conference. It was the biggest steel conference. And those conferences have not come back. And people thought those conferences were going to be starting in the fall, and they haven't. And in fact, the shopping center conference, the one in Las Vegas that I was speaking of, it's going to start in December. Used to be something that attracted, I think, 70,000 people. So the fact that that's happening is exciting for me. Now, it's making me believe that my thesis, that the golden days of travel are about to come and people are going to want to travel more than they ever have. And travel is really the real luxury. The experience is the real luxury. That's how people really want to show themselves off. It's not just having a fancy car or a fancy watch. It's being able to be seen on your social media things. Look at where I am. Look at what I'm doing. And parents, I have young kids. It's like we talk about what we're reading to our kids, what we're talking to our kids about, what we're getting them tutored in, or we're getting them coached, or you're getting them soccer lessons, or whatever it may be. But travel is the new theme. I'm going to take my kids to China. I'm going to take my kids to Japan. I'm going to take them scuba diving. It's all about learning, growing, and it's happening through an experience. So that has me very excited. And I have a hotel management company, and I want to own and operate my own properties. so I can add the ultimate amount of value. And I'm basically, in the hotels that I have brands, I'm working to kind of get out of being with the brands, because I believe that brands used to bring people in. Brands used to make people feel comfortable. But now, because I can see any hotel on my phone, I don't need a brand to have that. I just need to see the imagery. I need to see the stories. I need to see the TripAdvisor. So the brand doesn't need to be the pump anymore. And that gives me the opportunity as a curator. I'm a creator. Gives me the opportunity as a developer to create something, to develop something that's more exciting, that's going to differentiate myself, that's going to bring somebody in.
So your portfolio includes a lot of historical buildings. Can you tell me what attracts you to those types of properties?
Beauty, location, the history behind the building. Everything has a story. And the thing about historic is you either are or you're not. So either you're a modern glass building, or you're a boring building, or you're historic. And I'm a sucker for historic buildings. I'm a sucker for renewing historic buildings, for making them better and improving them from the outside to the inside, but not reinventing the outside, basically treating them as gems and shining them up so everybody knew the color that they really were, really knew how special they were. So that's why, I own the Watergate office building, because the history that happened in that Watergate office building, it's a complex. There's 2 office buildings, there's a hotel, apartment building, condo buildings. I'm only interested in owning the office building where the break-in happened, because of the history. It's not just an historic building, the history that goes with that story. So that's what really attracts me to it. And usually historical buildings are usually on corners. They're usually great locations. They're usually the prettiest building, and they usually are in distress. There is some sort of duress where a guy like me has to see it, has to shine it up, can fix it and take it back. And one thing that I learned from my mentor is that usually the original architect had the ultimate vision. They really had the right vision. And over time, we screw it up. We add walls, we do this. So one of the things that I usually do is I get the original architectural plans, understand them, and then understand where they are now. And usually over time, I get back to really where the original plans were. Usually gives me the best layout and the best flow. I feel that in my hotels. I feel that in my apartment buildings. Obviously feel it in office. I walked into the Watergate on Friday, and Sean Penn and Julia Roberts are filming a movie for something with Nixon. And they had changed the inside of the lobby to look like what the Watergate used to look like in the lobby. And it was really cool to me because the doors are brown and they painted it. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't love how that looked. But I saw what the original marble was. And the marble that we have in the building is very expensive and it's new and stuff like that. But I thought to myself, I'm going to take a picture of that. And when I confirmed that was the right marble, when I redo that lobby again, I'm going to take it back to that original marble. I'm going to really celebrate that. I'm going to really make that special. So I'm a sucker for historic buildings. I really think that they're special. I don't like ugly historic buildings, but sometimes I even see something in these ugly historic buildings. I lived in Prague. There was beautiful historic buildings next to it, which I call these communist buildings. And I found that over time, I could even see some beauty in some of those communist buildings, and over time could see why they were cool, and have actually been attracted to some of those buildings that have been built in Los Angeles that I went after. One was in South Florida that I've gone after. So I am just a sucker for an historic building. It just has a real identity to it.
So what is your prediction on the hospitality and commercial real estate market? Will we ever get back to the pre-COVID levels?
I think ultimately people want to be around people. Let's just go back to when we were cave people. We all got together and screamed in a cave and danced together. People want to be around people. So I think that's going to come back. I get the most done with my team when we're all together. Right? I'm not saying that remote work won't be there. I'm just saying that people are always going to want to come together. Some of our best memories, our best getting together with people are like Christmas parties for our companies. And we didn't have a Christmas party the last 2 years, but we're going to have a big Christmas party this year at all our various investments. And everybody's talking about it already. Everybody's getting excited. We're having a Halloween party at some of our operating companies. Everybody's very excited about it. So part of me is that I'm a social person. Part of my brand and my platform is bringing people together. So I think people will come back. I think with offices, it'll be the hub and spoke. There'll be like one main office and there'll be a lot of spokes in areas so people don't have to drive as far. But the hub's always going to be downtown. The hub's always going to be close to where the action is. The hub's always going to be in a special building with views and things like that. I think it's going to matter. But also, some things have changed. Lawyers don't like to go into the office. I never like to go see my lawyer anyways. So that's fine. But you know what? When I got a real problem and I really got to figure something out, I got to see my lawyer face to face. And if he doesn't want to come to my house and he's not going to expect me to come to his house, I imagine he's going to have an office. It might not be as big as it was in the past, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty nice because he's going to want to differentiate himself.
So let's go back to your early adulthood. You spent some time at the CIA, and then you moved on to KPMG and then FMG. Can you tell us about your career and the decision to launch Friedman Capital?
I was always an entrepreneur, and I had started an internet company with friends when I was in high school and worked out in college. And it was successful enough that made me have confidence in investing. And because of what happened with 9/11, that is what caused me to want to go be a government. I was a government contractor for KPMG that was working inside the CIA. I was like a Snowden with top secret clearance. And to get to that level, I had to go work at various government agencies from Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior, State Department, Defense Department, DIA, and then eventually CIA. And I had this goal that I wanted to be in the CIA. And when I finally got there, it wasn't so sexy. It wasn't so exciting. It was kind of depressing. And I had to go to work very early in the morning, and I worked very weird times, and I did a lot of travel. And so I kind of became a collector of little real estate deals because I had a little bit of money, and that gave me the ability to go buy real estate deals. And I was going to school at night, getting my master's in accounting and finance and my MBA at American. And my most successful professor, the guy that made the most money of the professors, was this guy that was the founder of FMG, and he was a pension fund advisor. And so that kind of spoke to me because he was a consultant. Well, I was a consultant that didn't really make any money. He was a consultant that made a lot of money. And he was doing real estate, and all the wealthiest guys I knew were doing real estate. And when I had the little bit of cash that I had, I put it into real estate, and it was working for me because I could buy low and sell high. It could give me rent checks. It gave me depreciation that offset other income. So I went to FMG to learn. I went to FMG to learn with other people's money on somebody else's account, to screw up, to be a developer, to build, to do all the things so I could say I did it without using my own money. And what I did was I met a guy that had figured out a great mousetrap. He had taken 42 assets that were in 36 states that were all environmentally distressed and said to these pension funds, we're going to put these in this bucket. And the only way to ultimately protect you and get your most money, but protect you from a liability perspective, is we're going to clean up, we're going to fix it, and we're going to sell it. And that might mean we were going to build it. So I got to be the young guy that helped figure out these development deals and these cleanup deals. And I got to work on all sorts of different assets. And my favorite thing, what I was really good at, was mixed-use property. And within mixed-use properties was adding the hospitality element, was adding the hotel. So FMG was a great learning experience because I got to develop a bunch of assets all over the country. I got to build a big book of contacts, and I got visibility in what was going on. And giving me that visibility in 2008 made me know the world was ending. because I saw how easy it was to get money in 2005, 2006, 2007. And then it started to stop. And I started realizing the stress that people were in. So that's why I left FMG. And I also left FMG because I was a whistleblower. I'm an ethical guy that always tells the truth. And I started to see things that were not correct. So you can't stay when you blow the whistle. So I had to expose what I was seeing. And in doing so, that forced me to go found Friedman Capital and go start doing deals with the idea that let's make money, but let's be philanthropic at the same time. And let's try to make as much money as possible and give a percentage away. And so that way you're really striving for a goal that just isn't about materialism and it just isn't about making yourself better, but it's really about, now these are charities that I choose, but about making the world better. So, now when I wake up in the morning, I'm not just trying to go buy myself a new car or a bigger house. I'm trying to help the greater good. I'm trying to help all the people and the things that I've been being philanthropic to. So I kind of think that just the one thing I want to say is like, what I realize is that management is like doing things right, but leadership is doing the right things. And so I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to be something that was going to be exemplified after what I was coming from. So I just have this mentality that it's about the journey and the approach.
Well, Brian, I want to thank you for sharing your story, and we look forward to seeing your growth in the coming years. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And Edwin, keep doing what you're doing. And in any way you can, let's upgrade this world, make it a better place.